Hello, Battletech fans, and we're back with another Battletech Heavy Metal Mech review. Our last review was on the Annihilator, and to kind of recap on that, we talked about potential quirks with these newly released mechs, and apparently that is true. We're going to have quirks with these mechs, so that's excellent. So we kind of guessed with that one, but we thought the quirk for the Annihilator would be something like a TTS ballistic, right? More accuracy with ballistic weapons. That is not going to be the case. I mean, things are subject to change, but the quirk that the Annihilator has, it is harder to knock down. So that is its quirk. So it can take more stability damage. So that's very, very cool. Take on the Phoenix Hawk here. So we're going to kind of talk about its design, what it's meant to do, its weapons, everything. So, and if it's good early game, mid game, and late game. So we'll kind of break it down in that sense. So the Phoenix Hawk is a 45-ton mech. It has 6 jump jets on it. It has a large laser, 2 medium lasers, and 2 machine guns. So that is its standard layout. So with that layout, I kind of feel like this is going to be maybe an Avenging Angel 2.0. So if you don't know, that's the different Vindicator variant. I feel like it's going to be kind of in that same realm. I mean, I think those two are going to be very competitive with one another as far as which one is better. So this thing is going to be lightly armored. So this thing is not going to stay in the fight for very long. It's pretty much meant for hit and run tactics. So hit and run tactics is going to be this primary role. So its weapons, so its standard weapon layout is not terrible. It's not bad at all. In fact, it's for a large laser and 2 medium lasers, so that's pretty much 90 damage. Just being standard, that's not bad at all. So, if you upgraded that at all, I mean, you could be hitting some pretty good numbers with the Phoenix Hawk for sure. But we're going to talk about its quirk. So its quirk isn't super exciting. It's not something that we're going to be jumping for joy over, but so apparently when it's jumping around, it has a higher accuracy to hit. So that is its quirk. It's when it jumps around, it has a better chance to hit its opponent, its enemy. So with that being said, how can this be utilized in the early game? So let's talk about that. So the early game, let's just, you're going to be fighting a lot of lighter mechs, correct? So let's say, could this be a starter mech? It could be a very starter mech since it's in the 45-ton bracket. It could very well land in your starting lance. So yeah, absolutely. It could give you a good edge in the early game if you happen to start off your career mode with a Phoenix Hawk, especially jumping around, you're gaining evasion, you're harder to hit. So the only disadvantage would be what is its armor class going to be like? So with 6 jump jets, I think the Spider has 8. So this thing has 6, and this thing is jumping around it's jumping around pretty significantly, especially like the Avenging Angel as well. That thing is very lightly armored, so I can only imagine what this thing is going to be like. So this thing cannot take hits for anything. So you want to keep your movement up high. And then as far as heat management goes, you want to probably switch off. You probably don't want to Alpha Strike with this too much. You probably want to switch off from your large lasers to your medium lasers. So kind of fire large lasers first, and then the second round you get a little bit closer and you fire your medium lasers. And you kind of take a cooldown turn at that point. So kind of something like that you want to think about early on. So it's not a bad early game mech. So HBS really took on the early game with these new 40-ton range mechs. So with the Assassin as So you know, those mechs are going to be a pain in the ass to deal with in the early game, but they can be a huge benefit to you in the early game as well. So I would definitely would like to get my hands on a Phoenix Hawk early game. So that would be probably its best fit would be in the early game. I think late game or mid game, you're gonna see a huge drop off, and it's gonna get sensor locked. It's going to get pretty beat up fairly quickly, unless your primary role is to get behind the enemy. You know, take wider flanks, so which prolongs the fight a little bit longer. With a 4-man lance, obviously. So during the mid game, it's not exactly going to be a significant problem to deal with, and I think the enemy is going to be, better suited going after the entirety of your lance and then turning its guns on the Phoenix Hawk after they finish those other 3 mechs off first. So it's probably best suited just for the early game. You probably already see the writing on the wall anyways, but I just want to, this is just my opinion, so I'm just going to give that to you, straight from the hip here. So late game, the only way that this can be anywhere close to viable is with potentially a coil weapon. So with a coil weapon, I think I kind of touched base on this during my Battletech Heavy Metal trailer review, so I kind of touched base on it a little bit. So what this coil weapon does is if you move around a certain amount, the higher the charge this weapon, higher the damage is going to be when you fire it. So potentially, the Phoenix Hawk can be used in that regard in the late game, because it might just be really, really hard to hit, and you have high piloting skill, and it's just going to run around the assault mechs and just blow everything away. Now, the question with those coil weapons is, how much heat is it going to generate? So that's the big question here. So an overall grade I would give this, if I were to give 1 out of 10. So for the early game, I would give this probably a high 7.5. So it's a very maybe a must-wanted mech, I would say. And for the mid game, it's going to drop off dramatically, and I would even be maybe a 4, maybe a 4 mid game, maybe. It probably should be a lot lower than that, to be honest. I'm just being nice. But we'll just say a 4 mid game, and then late game, it's probably around a 3, depending what your lance composition is like and everything else, and you're really relying on the coil weapon, one weapon, and pilot skill. It could be viable, but honestly, it's probably just best in the early game bracket. So that is my review of the Phoenix Hawk. Again, things are subject to change, and if things do change and I do hear about them, I will make another video on that mech or on that subject, and we'll kind of clarify some things. So thank you for watching.